Hey folks, Randy here with Doing Cut and Trim. So you guys are about to see me mow in real time the largest property that I have on a regular schedule. This is the second largest property I have on my route. It's 7/10 of an acre. I've got only one of them. I've only got one that's bigger, and that's 9/10 of an acre. And so, a 36-inch belt drive walk behind is definitely not the best mower for the job, but honestly, I usually can get this job done in about 45 minutes, which for what I'm working with is just fine. And it, because of the lawn's proximity to other properties that I have, it doesn't really mess me up too much as far as my production rate or anything. Actually keeps me just a little bit above it, I think. So that's what we're going to be watching today. Usually takes me about 10-15 minutes to trim the thing, and then about 30 minutes to mow it. And so that's what you guys are going to see. But I'm not going to talk about that the whole time, because this would be really boring and nobody cares. You know what I mean? It's a nice shot of my hip and belly. I actually do start off mowing this lawn a little weird, just because I don't want to spray anybody's clippings. Actually, we are going to talk about this lawn for a little bit. I don't want to spray anybody's car. So the first couple of passes I do are literally just going in a circle with my chute facing out, so I don't spray their cars. I really need to get a chute blocker so that I don't have to really worry about that as much. But for the time being, this is how I do it. So just mow, shut the blades off, go across the gravel driveway, turn the blades back on, and mow some more, and just keep doing that until it's all done. This property is in a part of Anne Arundel County where there's certain areas in Anne Arundel County, certain cities or towns or whatever you want to call it, where they literally just try and stuff properties anywhere they can. And this is the perfect example of it. So you see that driveway that I'm staring directly at? That driveway actually cuts through my customer's property. It's the weirdest thing. So you'll get to see more, I guess, at some point. I can't remember if I do another round or not. It might be a little bit before you can see. But basically, my customer's property is a perfect square, which makes mowing it pretty easy. But then their property actually extends kind of far out. It extends past that driveway, and then that's in a 6-foot width of grass to the right of that driveway. So technically speaking, I'm supposed to mow that. Now, the property that's, I guess, across the driveway from my customer, I don't think they realize that that's not their lawn. And so they usually end up cutting it. But if they don't, then it's on me to mow it. So just kind of weird, if somebody would have told me, they're allowed to run a drive-through right through your front yard, I'd be like, I don't think they can. But as it turns out, they actually can. It's kind of weird. But anyway, that's not really what I wanted to talk about today. What I wanted to talk about is actually a bunch of stuff. We may end up talking for a while. Who knows? But I wanted to talk to you guys at least at first about how things are going financially in the midst of this pandemic. I think I talked to you guys about April and how that went, and it went great. It was actually a much better April than any previous April I've had. However, the finances didn't reflect that. It showed I did more work, but I made less money, and that's when I realized where accrual versus cash basis accounting can actually come in handy when you're trying to measure how you're doing. Because if I measured by cash basis, I actually took a slight loss compared to April of last year. But if I measured it by accrual basis, it was actually a 30% uptick or something crazy. And it's because I accepted a lot of prepayments in January. And so because I took all those prepayments in January, there was, a couple $1,000 that didn't get paid in April because it had been paid in January. So on paper, it looked like I took a slight loss, just on a cash basis, but on an accrual basis, it was actually, like I said, like a 30% increase, which was great. May did not fare as well. My cash basis accounting showed that in May I took a 20% loss, which is kind of a bummer. But then if I look at it on an accrual basis, it was actually a 7% loss, which still not what you want, but it's a lot better than 7%. It's a lot better than 20%, which I was really happy about that, because one of the things that's interesting though is, even though I saw a downturn in business in May compared to previous years, even though this May actually this May was still the second best May I've ever had, cash wise. Second best May ever. But just lost my train of thought. But my spending habits are a lot different. So because you don't know. I mean, when you're dealing with a government that apparently can just kind of shut things down if they want to. I was fortunate that I never got put in the position of being shut down, but I know a lot of businesses were. So you modify, or at least I do, modify my spending decisions to kind of reflect the reality that the rug could get pulled out from underneath me. So to that effect, we have been saving a ton. You guys know, we had a lot of really big purchases planned for this year, and it's possible they'll still happen, but now it's feeling a lot more prudent to save as much money as possible, and then maybe look at those purchases down the line, because as you guys know, I don't finance anything. Everything I pay for is cash. So, but because we've changed our spending habits, we actually have already filled our winter fund to its normal level. We have a certain amount that we save every year to help us get through the winter, and as of June 1st, we've already hit that savings goal. So I'm thinking what we'll probably do is double that savings. I don't know if we'll be able to actually double it by the end of June, but definitely by the end of July. And then at that point, we'll reassess, and maybe some of those large purchases will happen. But at least not yet. Like I said, I just want to be as wise as possible, and I know a lot of folks got a lot of stuff to say about things getting shut down, and I don't have a problem with that. My family, we actually took a lot of the steps that the government's required. We actually took them before the government stepped in. I think the only thing that the government really kind of beat us to the punch on was school. The government closed down schools before we could pull our son out of school. But everything else we had already done. We had already spoken to our pastors and, our leadership, I guess I should say, and let them know that we weren't going to be coming to church for a while. And it's because, the medical needs of my son. I'm without getting into politics, because good God, I'm a strong libertarian guy. I'm very much that mindset, don't tell me what to do. I'll leave you alone, you leave me alone. But that doesn't change the fact that, I have a special needs child with special medical conditions that viruses like the coronavirus definitely like to lock onto. And so, we are as careful as humanly possible with him. Now, fortunately, the summer's hitting, and, generally speaking, viruses don't do good in warm climates. It's definitely warm in Maryland now, so Not as worried about it. But I mean, we locked it down hard. I mean, my wife and son, our family went into lockdown, except for me working and grocery shopping. My family went into lockdown in March, like mid to late March. And my wife and son did not leave our neighborhood again till the end of May. As of it was almost 2 weeks. 2 weeks. It was almost 2 months between when my son saw his grandmother and before he saw her again. I don't think it was exactly 2 months, but it was closing in there. We're pretty hardcore about it. And now they're starting to open things back up, and we're still gonna take our time. And when things open up, we probably will not be among the first people to go. I don't know why I'm talking about this. I guess I'm just talking about whatever's on my mind. But if people want to go, I don't care. Do what you want to do, man. It's like it's kind of like the whole mask thing. When people are saying like, I don't want to wear a mask, hey, that's on you, man. I don't care. Do whatever you want to do. I wear a mask. I don't care. Whatever. Why am I talking about this? I don't know. This part might get cut out. We'll see. Anyway, so what else is there to talk about? Oh, I got some new boots. I'm finding out at my increased age of 32 is I need to have like really good footwear, or it just kind of jacks me up, man. I progressively started working my way up as far as like spending money on footwear, and finally reached the point where I realized, if I want to get something that works good for me, I'm going to have to spend a lot of money, or at least a lot of money to me. Before I started my own business, the most I ever spent on a pair of shoes was $40, and I was pretty upset about having spent that much. But now, doing what I do for a living, man, my work boots, like the work boots I've settled on that work great for me, are $170. I just bought another pair at Red Wing. It's the Red Wing Hiker Gray WTP waterproof number 8670, and they're $159.99, and then another $10 on tax, so it was $169. I don't like spending that kind of money on shoes, but I have this problem where I have a bad habit of starting to walk. I walk on like the outsides of my feet. And so when you walk on the outsides of your feet, the shoes you wear, they don't wear evenly. And so over the course of time, it actually makes the walking on the outside of your feet worse. And so one of the things that ends up happening to me is that as shoes get jacked up, I start to get pain in my knees and my right hip. And, I did not identify it at first. And actually, this was really annoying. You can't always go by what doctors... Man, we are all over the place, and not all of it's lawn care related, but whatever. We're just talking here, right? We're just talking and mowing, right? Because, like I said, we're mowing a 7/10 of an acre property with a 36-inch belt drive with a pretty heavy dude on the back, so this is going to take a while. I lost my train of thought again. Oh. So, like, the first time this happened to me, and I'm going somewhere with the whole shoe talk, but the first time I started noticing, like, the problem with my knees and my hip, I went to a doctor about it because it was actually getting to the point where I could barely walk. I was icing my knees. I would wake up in the morning, ice my knees. I would, take spray that, like, pain relieving spray on my legs to try and numb it. Icy hot whenever I could. I'd come back home and I would ice my knees down for another, hour. It was like I could literally barely walk. I could barely stand up. And sitting down, like it hurt all the time. And then my hip started hurting, and I didn't want to go to the doctor because I was afraid of what they would say. And so I ended up going to the doctor, and they didn't know what was going on, but they were like, this is really not good, yada yada. Started telling me all this horrible stuff that could, be going on. And they wanted me to get, I believe it was an MRI? I don't remember. They wanted me to do something that involved laying down and a machine looking at the inside of my body. And I was like, shoot, that just sounds serious. So I was afraid. I was like, man, what if it's going to be surgery or something? I'm the sole support for my family, yada, yada. And I don't know what made me think of it, but I was like, you know what? I'm wearing some old jacked up boots. Let me buy some new boots. This was July of last year. And so I asked my wife, I was like, hey, for my birthday, can we go to Red Wing and get some boots for my birthday? And she was like, yeah, sure. And so we went to Red Wing and bought me a pair of boots. And when I say I literally could feel my knees and hip getting better as the day went on. And it was because I wasn't wearing good shoes, and it was jacking up my, it was just jacking everything up. And so ever since then, I've been like, all right, well, I guess I gotta spend oodles of dollars on shoes, which, just thought of spending, because I did it today, like I said, and the thought of spending $169 on a pair of boots is just nauseating. But my hip was starting to hurt a lot today, and I put these boots on, and I can literally feel my hip getting better. So it's a good investment, and it's also nice because they're waterproof. Because the thing about $180 or $170 boots is when they say they're waterproof, they're actually waterproof. I bought a pair of Columbia boots from Zappos because my wife was buying some hiking shoes from Zappos, and so I was like, oh, well, let me see if I can. I don't know why I thought I could get away with going cheap, but I did. And so I bought a pair of $60 Columbia quote-unquote waterproof boots, and they weren't waterproof. It's like you start walking through dewy grass, and it's like, okay, that bottom half, couple inches of the boot is waterproof, but the top half isn't, so it's just you get soaking wet, and it's just so frustrating. So it's like, I'm a cheap guy. I don't like spending a lot of money on stuff, but when it comes to my footwear, unfortunately, I do end up having to spend a whole heck of a lot more than I'd like to. But, it is what it is. What are you going to do? You know what I mean? What else do I want to talk to you guys about? I don't know. Actually, I was debating whether or not I was going to talk to you guys about this or not. But are you guys familiar with Jungle Gym and the, what do you call that thing? The Trailer Mate, I think is what they call it. And it's like this deal where it's like, it's like a trimmer rack, 2 trimmer racks, 2 blower racks, and a kind of a catch-all bin or something that you attach to your trailer. It's like $300. But it would also just fit right onto my truck because, the way the back of my truck is. I was thinking about buying that. Excuse me. Just because I feel like it would make things more accessible and easier on my truck. I really don't like where the blower rack is on my truck, especially now that I'm having to use backpack blowers, at least for the next little while. Oh, I want to talk about that too. But also, it would just bring my trimmer lower to the ground. And I would have 2, trimmer racks just that are easily secured, just ready to go. Because we never did weld on the lock on the upper rack that I've got. And so, I can put a trimmer on it, but it's not necessarily safe. So I'm thinking about buying that thing. You guys know how this goes. I say I'm thinking about buying something, and then it's a year later, and I'm still thinking about it. So but it's just something I'm thinking about. What was the thing I wanted to talk? So I think if you guys are following me on my channel, I'm assuming you've seen. I discovered why my handheld blower wasn't working, which is the fact that and I've never seen this before, but the spark plug wire snapped in half. I don't know how that's even possible. I've never touched it, I've never taken the spark plug boot off the spark plug So I have no idea how that could have possibly snapped, but it stands to reason that's probably why it won't start. You know what they say, you need spark to run, and if that wire is snipped, then or broken, it's not snipped. I mean, it looks like it just broke. I honestly don't understand how that could have happened. But so that it needs to be replaced. So I called my local steel dealer. It was funny because, like, you know, I'm sure they get a lot of phone calls from people that think they know what they're talking about, and honestly, I'm guilty of being one of those people. But in this situation, it's pretty obvious what's wrong, and so I said I need a new ignition coil for the BG50 handheld blower. And the guy goes, "No, you don't. Those things pretty much never go bad." And I was like, well, this one did go bad. And he was like, are you sure? How do you know? And it's like, well, the wire broke. So I'm sure the actual coil itself is fine, but the wire broke. And he was like, yeah, I guess that would do it. You know, it's another thing that's kind of a bummer about this pandemic is you can't really get, or you can, but it's not as easy. There's not as much of a plethora of aftermarket parts. So, I mean, you know, this is a $140 blower, and I just gave the steel dealer $38 for the ignition coil. But when I went on Amazon to look, I know you're never supposed to admit you shop on Amazon. I'm so sorry. But I went on Amazon, and they only had one ignition coil for the BG50 available. And, you know, it's from China. It was $13. Now, I've never had a problem with Chinese ignition coils. So, I mean, shoot, I'd have bought that. But it had like a 2-month wait on it. And I didn't really feel like waiting that long for it. Because I got to be honest with you, man. I am so over using my backpack blower for my everyday work. I mean, don't get me wrong, this thing is awesome, it's great, but it's just such a process and such a hassle. And I don't feel like getting into the whole conversation again, because I definitely kind of rubbed some backpack blower people the wrong way the last time I talked about this. But I just don't like it. I just don't like using the backpack blower is my everyday deal, like, because there's just so many times where it just changes the way I do things, you know, because now, you know, you can slide through certain things, or you might be able to walk between people's cars when you got the handheld, but then if you got the backpack, then you got to make sure you're not, you know, when you're walking sideways, that you're not gonna like rub their car with the backpack. And then, like, you know, you can only have the blower in your right hand. I switch hands with my blower all the time, depending on what I'm doing and which way I want the clippings to go. But with a backpack, you're just kind of locked in. It's got to be in your right hand. There's no other way around it, you know. And I just don't like that. It feels very limiting. So I'm very grateful for it. It's definitely a huge step up from the steel BR550 that I had. But I'll also definitely, and I'll be putting it to good use come the fall. But as soon as my handheld blower is fixed, man, I am putting that sucker back to work. There was something else I wanted to say. Oh, on the topic of Red Max backpack blowers, man, can you guys hear this guy with his rap music? It's actually not some guy, it's some chick, but it's really annoying. I don't you hate it when people are like, oh, you know what, I really like this song, I guess everybody else probably would like it too. I hate that, man. I don't want to listen to your music. I want to listen to my music. It's just so annoying. I find loud stereos to be very obnoxious. Really, really rubs me the wrong way. And maybe that's because I'm turning into an old man. You know, I've joked that when I didn't turn 30, I turned 40, and I turned into that, get off my lawn guy. But this is so annoying. This chick is just like cleaning out her car and just jamming to some, I don't know, whoever it is. I have no idea who this artist is. I don't like it. That's all I'm saying. So Red Max. Maybe it's just me, because as you guys know, I tend to use older equipment, so I don't know about the newer stuff. But just using this Red Max blower, this EBZ 6500, this is a beefy machine, man. I mean, I was looking at the components. I mean, it's like, it looks like they used auto parts on this thing. I mean, the carburetor is like double the size of the carburetor you put on the steel, which I don't even know if that means anything, but it's just interesting. Just everything just looks like it was made more heavy duty. I've definitely still got some work to do on it. I ordered a new handle for it, so I'm not just holding a tube. I can actually hold a handle. And I think I need to rewire the kill switch, because I was thinking about it, because like the kill switch doesn't work. And I tested the switch with a multimeter, and the switch works. So, and the ignition coil obviously works. For those of you guys that don't know, the way you kill your machine, I think this is how you kill all of them, regardless if it's handheld or like a mower. The way you kill it, when you hit that off switch, you're actually grounding out the ignition coil, so it stops sending spark. So that's why, like, you could turn your key off and then turn it right back on, and your mower would just start right back up. Because if it's still spinning fast enough, then it'll get the spark again, and it'll just keep going. So anyway, so on this Red Max blower, the ignition coil is obviously good, because it starts and it runs and it's powerful, but it won't stop. And I tested for conductivity. I tested the wires. I didn't see anything wrong. I mean, I felt like I got I keep wanting to say continuity, but continuity. So only thing I can figure is I need to replace the wires. That maybe there's like some kind of gremlin in there that's just like making it show that they've got continuity, but really they don't, or maybe they don't have it good enough, or I don't know. I just don't see why it wouldn't work. So I'm gonna do that. I did try using a different kill switch to see if it would kill it that way, but that didn't do anything. So I don't know. We're gonna test that and find out how that, and see how that goes. Yeah. Oh, the only other thing actually I wanted to talk about, I'm just getting all kinds of stuff off my chest. We're just talking lawn care here. Is you guys know these mesh eye protection that I got? I really like them. I've been using them for a couple of weeks, and it's my go-to eye protection. They're really great. They protect my eyes just as well as sunglasses do, but they don't fog up. They don't get covered in sweat like sunglasses do. But there's just one problem I discovered. And that is they can kind of mimic sunglasses a little bit, just because there's a lot of darkness on them, but they're not actually sunglasses. They don't actually protect you from the sun. And so my whole face is covered up except for where these sunglasses are covering me, and I got sunburned all around my eyes. Oh, and you guys know why I'm stopped here? I was going to mention this, but in this video, but you see that branch? I actually hit my head on that branch, and it really it didn't ring my bell, but it definitely felt like it wasn't good. But anyway, I'm fine now though, I think. Seems like I'm doing okay. But these mesh eye protection, they definitely work great, but you got to make sure you put like sunscreen on if you're going to use them, because I did get like sunburn just around my eyes that day, and it wasn't a pleasant experience. So it's just kind of funny how that all worked out. But we're kind of getting down here towards the end. If you stayed here with me this long, thank you very much for watching and listening. I guess mostly listening. As I just kind of talked about whatever popped into my head. Just whatever it was, I said it. I really don't have much more to say, and there's like almost 2 minutes left in this video. I don't really know what else to say. I guess I could say something completely unrelated to lawn care. I've got a new favorite song. You guys, if you're not a church-going guy, you probably haven't. But have you heard that song, Waymaker? The first time I heard it was by this artist called I don't even know if I'm pronouncing this right. Sinach, Sinach, the Nigerian singer. And her version of that song, dude, is so good. I mean, wow. I've heard a couple other versions since hearing hers. None of those versions are anywhere near as good as her version of that song. So Waymaker by Sinach, highly recommend. It's way better than Mandisa's version. It's definitely better than Michael W. Smith or Elevate or whoever else sings it. Sinach has definitely got the best version. Definitely better than the Maranatha Singers. Good God. Who actually likes the Maranatha Singers? Now we're getting really into the whole, Christian music talk. We get into this. Who actually listens to the Maranatha Singers, and who has any idea what I'm talking about? I am not a Maranatha Singers guy. But who cares about that, right? So, we're wrapping it up now. So, this is Randy with Doing Cut and Trim. Thank you for hanging out with me, listening to me talk about whatever. I'd love to hear what you have to say about whatever it was I said. Until next time, have a good one. Stay safe. Be blessed. All that fun stuff. Bye.